Hey Salesforce Hubs, welcome to Codeforce Chronicles. My name is Shruthi, a Salesforce consultant and coach from the past 6 months and a YouTuber with an expertise in sales and service cloud with a reference to 5.5 years as my experience from 2019 till present as a proof that we can live without our preferences. And today's podcast is related to the intention behind every vertebral, that is a mechanism that we use, which we call it as a flow builder. Today we are diving into a critical topic: when we use flows and when to use. Now I'll be clear with the vertebral: when to use flows and when to use Apex for automation in Salesforce. The reason I want my viewers to be part of this sarcasm, that is the circumference which we all perform, that is a builder which we all create, but when we try to perform, which is also part of my curriculum in my course, which is for rupees 5,000 as a live session and 3,000 as a vertebral, that is admin, developer and advanced admin course. I want you to know the package in detail will be provided to you after you use the vertebral. That is the coupon code which we all understand. But when you try to approach me, I want you to provide the feedback that you have watched my videos, have commented on my videos, and you want me to help you to grow in your career. That is for rupees 12,500 for a live session with 3 courses and 2 years of support, where my placements which I provide is not part of the referral program which you all will face. The reason is, when you are referred to a company and I am not part of the curriculum, I wouldn't be able to quote myself as a preference to you where you want my support. Second, if you get placed, there is a process which you have to follow, that is a background verification, where we are clear that you have to provide the details of your previous organization. So if my support is required, you have to be part of my course, complete the certification, where I'll provide the feedback to you with your score, and the reference on my LinkedIn as an endorsement should be accepted, so that when the curriculum, that is your vertebral, for example, you're employed in Cognizant and you want the feedback to be accepted, that is your certification as well, and they view the LinkedIn endorsement of mine, it is a proof that you are part of a curriculum, it is validated on a platform, and you can take the reference forward. This session, that is flow versus Apex, automating the podcast as a proof, when to use flows and when to use Apex for automation in Salesforce, is inspired by the CEO of India, a mentor and guide, and when I read her recent post, it is clear that she is part of the curriculum as a vertebral, where I see sales and service cloud as a preference to all the vertebrals that we are part of. As a preference, we have to conduct the surveillance on all the performance, and if we conduct the review on the vertebral, that is the author of all our mentoring, that is the preference that we follow. And my mentor Deepika Khanna, who always emphasizes clarity in thought creates clarity in execution. By the end of the session, you will not only know how to make the right automation decisions, but you will also get actionable insights for your career growth. Why automation matters. Now, when it comes to this question, you should be clear that automation isn't just about reducing clicks, it's about efficiency, streamlining repetitive tasks, accuracy, minimizing errors, scalability, handling enterprise level processes. Quick question for Salesforce Hubs. Have you ever faced a situation where a flow just didn't cut it? Comment your experience below. Let's learn together. The reason for the vertebral which we use, that is the first question which I will answer. What is Salesforce and its cloud offerings? When it comes to the two mechanisms that we all perform, that is vertebral, where we can head towards the dignitaries, that is the Salesforce platform as SaaS, PaaS or IaaS, where we understand that the sarcasm is not in place with the cloud technology, but the platform that we built, that is quoted in all events, and the upcoming event with Salesforce is in place with the developers, that is on 3rd of December, where we can perform our vertebral as a proof and evidence with all the sarcasm. Now, when we speak about the events and the curriculum, we understood that the first question is answered. Now the second question is, explain the differences between Salesforce Classic and Lightning Experience. We should understand that the context which we all are in place with is with the experience and not the lightning proof. Now when it comes to the vertebral that we all are in place with, that is declarative versus programming, flow versus apex. Here's a simple way to think about it. Flows, perfect for admins, great for small to medium complexity, easy to maintain. Now when it comes to the question, what is a Salesforce object, difference between standard and custom objects, we should understand that the vertebral is in place with all the preferences as a proof and evidence that we have handled the situation. Second, apex is under scrutiny with the management and handlers, that is required for complex logic, handles high volume data operations, expertise grade error handling. Now when we speak about our preferences, that is the relationship which we all quote. What is relationship in Salesforce? Explain lookup versus master detail, where I've explained about the circumference, that is the apex versus flow builder. We should understand that the lookup relationship with the master detail, which is quoted as a preference, and I was shocked to understand or surprised to understand the vertebral, that is the relationship between master detail and lookup is just a hierarchical proof, where we can understand that the lookup is in place with master detail as a single mechanism, where the hierarchy is with the hereditary, that is the hierarchical or the I want you to understand that I'm trying to phrase a sentence where it is hierarchical sentences. That means, hierarchy as a preference with all the vertebral. Hierarchy as a preference, and if you are facing any network issue, that is the issue which is quoted as a preference in this vertebral, as a proof and evidence, you have to quote this as a mechanism. Now when it comes to master detail relationship, the performance is quoted as an issue. Type flow or apex in the comments depending on which you have used more and why. How do you perform data export or import in Salesforce, or import or export in Salesforce, based on the surveillance or the mechanism that we all place ourselves into? And with all the preferences in the Salesforce mechanism, we have to explain the vertebral. Now decision framework. Let's create a decision roadmap for Salesforce Hubs. Complexity of logic. Flow for simple branching, apex for loops, queries, triggers. Data volume. Flow for small, medium, apex for large scale. Maintenance and governance. Flows if businesses users maintain. Apex if developers maintain. Now think about the situation where we all can head towards, that is to explain the crude operation, where I see that the placement is in place with all the preferences. That is the challenge which you all have to face. Think of a process at your org and decide flow or apex, comment your answer. Now when it comes to automation, when would you use flow versus apex? It depends on the mechanism and the example which I'm quoting. Let's take an example. Suppose you need to update 5,000 contact records when an account changes. A flow will hit governor limits. Apex with bulk processing handles this efficiently. This is why knowing when to go declarative versus programmatic is essential for every Salesforce professional. When it comes to our vocabulary, that is the acumen's language, which we all understand as a preference and form, where we can understand that the a situation is in place with the colloquial terminologies and I didn't understand the word, but the preference which you all put as a formulated evidence should be in place with our interview and the process that we handle. Now when I'm trying to explain a preference, it is clear that there are mistakes which you have performed and I'm trying to handle the words which you can't use, that is the limitations. Now explain process builder and its limitation as the next vertebral as a proof and evidence that the process builder is used for a period of time where we can process the evidence after we put it as a preferential vertebral as a context. Now when we use the terminologies, and if you want me to be part of your life, it should be clear that I have quoted you as an example. Second, this podcast is clear with all the vertebrals and I want you to like, share and subscribe to my channel, that is Codeforce Chronicles. Now when it comes to the circumference that we use, that is the process builder and the preference that we all understand, and I want you to quote your mentor as a proof and evidence where Deepika Khanna is clear with all the vertebrals, and I understand that the background noise is the proof and evidence in my video where I see that you are part of my surveillance, and in case you find that my effort is in place with all the substantial quoting, that is the preference that we all follow, then you should understand the next question as a proof and evidence. What are workflow rules? Workflow rules are in place with the circumference, that is the proof and evidence that we follow. That rule should be quoted as an example throughout your life, where I want you to know that if you're happy with your career, you're happy with the wordings. Now if you want to be part of my course that is in place with all the alignment, and if you want me to counsel your preference as a career counselor, then you have to subscribe to my channel Smart English Words to understand the preferential vertebral. Now when it comes to my channel, that is Codeforce Chronicles, here is a list of prodigy which you can be part of. That is the podcast series which I am conducting in another series which was in place with my circumference. Now when it comes to my live session, I've conducted a live session where the roadmap of my irony is in place. When it comes to my videos, I want you to conduct yourself as a preference where you can share the videos based on the comments and the preferences. But in case you find my videos preferably acceptable, then you can like the video, comment, share, watch the entire video based on your vocabulary, that is your time. What is apex? Where is it used? Now this question can be answered with all the preferences that we quote ourselves as a vertebral, where the apex is a programming language where we can assure the usage of our preference. Now when it comes to apex and its context, where we understand that the term is used when we use it as a terminology. Next question which you have to answer as a proof and evidence that explain bulk triggers and governor limits will be in place with your vertebral, that is your interviewer or the interviewee, in a context where an interview or an interview is in place. Now when you try to circumference your proof as an example, that is a condolence in the category where we have to perform a promotion as a proof and evidence, where I see that you are able to context your vertebral, but if you feel that you're not safe, you have to remain private with your thoughts and focus on your interview. Now when it comes to my life, my parents are my support, especially my best friend. Find a friend who is supportive when it comes to your category, and you can proceed with your limitations only if the category is improved with your family member, that is my cousin sister. Now I want you to know that we have people who are in favor with our situation, especially our best friends. Now when it comes to another friend of mine, she saved me from the thought of quitting to become a channelized version in the vocabulary that is the prodigy that we use. Now if you want to understand the mechanism, that is the communication which you all follow, and the situations where we will be part of, you can subscribe to my channel Smart English Board. Now when it comes to the politics in the category, where I want you to understand that my mentor Deepika Khanna says, invest in clarity and skill. Opportunities follow those who prepare. Understanding automation not only improves your org's efficiency but boosts your career. Companies value developers and admins who can make these decisions intelligently. Now, I received the feedback from a subscriber, and I can quote her example as a proof and evidence where she worked on a project which I had provided. Now when it comes to the projects which we all will be part of or are part of, provided that you have placed yourself as a circumstantial evidence in a company after watching my videos, and in case you want to be part of my life as a mentor and preference, then you have to quote yourself as a quoting evidence. In case you are subscribing to another channel and you want me to be part of your life, then you have to comment on my video where my preference is quoted as a vertebra. When it comes to our everyday situation where we have to face the people who are not interested in our political cadre, that is our vertebral weakness, then you have to follow the podcast series of mine where I quoted this as an example in my channel Smart English Board. I want you to promote my preference, that is my parents, in all your vertebrates, so that my cousin is in place and my best friend is also part of my curriculum. Now he is part of my life as a friend and mentor, and in case you feel that you want his preference to be quoted where he is clear with his vertebral, then you have to place your statements as a proof and evidence that in case he is part of my life and he wants to be part of your sessions, he should be aware about the concepts in theoretical factors, and he is happy that I'm part of Salesforce because of the friends of mine who supported me. When it comes to the reality, we want to get placed in a company with our colleagues as a support and mentors who can explain the concept to a person who is not part of our life. Where my friend tried to explain the same to my best friend, where my best friend was impressed with the vertebral, that is my package. But when it comes to reality, these are skills which are in place, where my friend understood that when I'm preparing it for an interview, you should be clear with the vertebral and not the context, that is package. We should live with our autonomy, that is our skills or certification based on the preference. When it comes to our reality, that is our preference and our quotations, we have to understand that how do you handle exceptions in Apex is a proof and evidence where you can perform your vertebrals. When it comes to your activities that you are placing yourself as or with, you should understand that the exceptions can be handled by using a handler class, and if you want your programmatical preference, that is the preference which I am putting as a program and not as a vertebral, and if you are aware of the declarative functions, you should understand that the words which you place with the interview should be in place with your life. What is the difference? Now when it comes to the vertebral, which I wanted you to understand, what is the difference between the handler class and the trigger handling mechanism? You should quote this as an example in the next preference, that is the vertebral, which I will help you to understand. difference between aura components and LWC. Now, when we place a circumstantial proof as an evidence where we can understand that aura components and LWC are in place with the preference, that is apex handlers with the vertebral, then I want you to understand that my content, that is the programmatical influence which I am quoting as a proof and evidence, that in case you have subscribed to my channel, it is clear that my vertebral, that is my content, is in place with the preference. So in case you have duplicate records or the vertebral, which we all understand as aura components, then you have to add a line of code where you can quote the field name as a preference. Explain a challenging scenario you solved with LWC. Now when we speak about the preferences, which we all understand, and in case you want your friend to be part of my curriculum, it should be clear to my curriculum as a preference that we have converted our preferences as a proof and evidence that you're part of my life only because of a friend of yours who wanted your reference to be in place with the scenarios that we all are part of. Now when we speak about the humility and the dignity that we all have to follow, where we are part of a curriculum, that is the single sign-on settings. Now when we speak about single sign-on settings, we should understand that the whitelisted formulated evidence, that is the community which we all follow, is in place with the integration. Now when we quote it as an example where we understand cybersecurity is in place with all the preferences, and I know that I've guided you towards the curriculum, then you have to place yourself as a victim of a repercussion, that is a quoted influence, where you are clear with your vertebrals even in your videos. If you're a YouTuber, if you comment in a section where we are clear that you're part of the curriculum, where you have seen a video which is impressive, then you have to tag the YouTuber in all the forums where you can understand their context. Now when it comes to Salesforce, we are smart and it is in place with the updates. So we believe in the updates and not in the preference that is quoted as a proof. So when we write the code, we should be clear with our vertebrals, that is the governor limit. How do you communicate between LWC and Apex? Now this question can be answered only if you are answerable to all the questions, and I will provide this PDF as a proof and evidence that we have discussed all the scenarios. You can quote this as a preference in your label, that is your vocabulary, and we can proceed further with your mechanism. Now when it comes to the difference between the vertebrals, and LWC and Apex can communicate their preferences, that is the asynchronous providence, where two mechanisms are used with the REST operations, where wrapper class or the classes that we quote as wrapper should be in place only when the context is available with the forte, that is the field name along with the object variables. Now when we speak about the parameters that we use as a preference and context, where the data type should be in place with the vertebrals, we should conclude the statements of ours as a proof and of our client as a proof and evidence that we are providing the context as a preference and not as a mechanism. Explain profiles, roles and permission sets. When it comes to the real world scenarios, and here's what my mentor tried to quote: invest in clarity and skill. Opportunities follows those who prepare. That is my mentor Deepika Khanna. It's clear that her vertebral, that is understanding automation, not only improves your org's efficiency but boosts your career. Now when it comes to companies who value developers and admins who can change these decisions intelligently, I want you to understand that the providence that we provide is in place with the profiles as a vertebral to roles and permission sets as a mechanism, where we can quote profiles as a medium through which we can align the circumstantial providence, that is role. Role is a hierarchy which can be quoted as a preference in the profiles that we maintain. Permission sets are the additional features or the mechanism we provide to conduct our surveillance on profiles and roles. What are sharing rules and why are they important? When it comes to the preference that we all quote as an example, sharing rules are maintained by their vertebrates, that is the object and the providence that we follow as a proof and evidence that they are important to write the code and not to share the mechanism. And in case you want to change the owner, that is a scenario which you all face, then we have to understand that we have to quote it as an example and not as a preference. Real life scenarios. How would you optimize a process that hits governor limits? Now when it comes to governor limits and its actions that we all understand as a preference and proof, where I want you to watch a video which is available in my channel, then you have to quote this as a proof and evidence where we can optimize a process without using the governor limits as a proof and evidence, where we can quote this as an example. In case you're interested to enroll to my course, I'll provide a copy of the curriculum as a proof and evidence and as an acceptance to my prodigy. I want you to opt for the course which is for rupees 7,500, that is the self-paced course. And in case you want to be part of my community where you will place your statements as a learner, I want you to understand the next scenario. Describe a complex automation you implemented and the challenges you faced. Now, when it comes to the challenges that we all face or the complexity of the vertebral, we have to understand that the scenario that I am quoting will be provided as a formulated evidence in my category. Now, when you're trying to like my video, share or subscribe to my channel, you should understand that the vertebral should be in place with the context. I wanted to create a page for quota management with the PDF as a proof where the conversion is in place with the management. But when we use it as an automation tool where we have to create an approval process and proceed with the challenges that we might face, I face one challenge, that is to convert the PDF according to the quota, that is the quoted price with all the reference. Now when we talk about quote and quota, it is a mechanism through which we can sign a contract. The quota is in place with the contract and quote is in place with the pricing and prodigy. Scenario. You need to bulk update 10,000 records. How do you approach it? When it comes to this topic, that is the batch epics, which we all understand as a proof and evidence that we have to write the mechanism in 3 stances. That is, first is start, execute and then finish methods with an example that the challenges that we face is in place with the records only if we prove the circumstantial evidence, that is the list with the condition that we approach the bulk data updates with the insert operation only if it is provided as an update in the terminology. Now how will you approach it? The mechanism that we all use to approach the medium that we speak about is in the update functionality. Now HR questions which you all understand. Tell us about the time you resolve the conflict in a team. Now when it comes to team and management, we can handle the process with the prodigy, that is our vertebral in the providence, where I understand that the providence is in place with the team. So the conflict that I resolved was between 2 colleagues of mine who tried to prove their identity, where I found a colleague mature who handled the situation by not quoting the incident to the client or the mechanism, but to the team so that they resolve the issue. How do you stay updated with the Salesforce releases? We can stay updated with all the preferences according to the releases by quoting ourselves as a proof and evidence in the Salesforce mechanism and trail it as a platform where we can quote ourselves as a proof and evidence. Now when it comes to the daily updates which we all should understand, we have to refer to the articles which are provided in the help platform in the context that if we have a release, it should be in place with all the vertebrates. Now I wanted to answer the next question. Describe a situation where you had to learn something new quickly. We can update this vertebral as a proof and evidence that we have handled the situation, but we want the preference to be quoted everywhere. Now, if you want to master Salesforce automation, get hands-on examples and prepare for real-world projects and interviews, you can enroll to my course today. I want you to contact my preference as a proof and evidence that my number should be quoted in all circumstantial evidence. Subscribe to my channel for weekly Salesforce tutorials, tips and real-world guidance. Remember, comment your toughest automation problem below. We will solve it together in the next session. Like, share and subscribe to join the growing Salesforce Hubs community. Understand when to use Salesforce flows versus Apex. Apply a decision framework for automation. Real-world example for bulk processing. Career guidance inspired by Deepika Khanna. These are the formulated evidence in today's session. Thank you.